all the time. And this is part 2 of herb seed saving. And if you haven't seen my first video where I went over the feverfew and the calendula, you can go ahead and find that one right up here. And today I'm going to be talking about marshmallow and yarrow seed. Now, I do have videos on the marshmallow and on the yarrow showing what it looks like when it's growing and talking about the many medicinal benefits of each of these things. And I'll link to each of these up here in the iCards, and so you'll probably see that banner pop up a couple times back to back, one for the marshmallow and one for the yarrow. Okay, so if you're interested in the medicinal benefits, go check those out. And now I'm going to show you how I save these seeds. Now typically what I do is I take the whole flower head or stalk and stick it in a paper bag and set it in a place where it's out of the way and just let them dry periodically. If it's something that tends to want to mash down a lot, like the borage, I try to mix it up and keep the airflow going in there so they don't mold. Borage is a little more tricky. Now you can hang these things up, like I said in the previous video, to dry, but with the things like the borage and the amaranth and the woolly lamb's ear, the seeds will just start going everywhere, and so you'll need to make sure you hang it up over something where, like, you can hang it over a bag or over a bucket, and that would be the most ideal way to do it. Anyway, so that's what I do first, and then once the seeds are fully dry, I'll show you what I do next. Okay, so right here are what the little marshmallow, like I got some leaves and flowers in here too, but the marshmallow flower center, once it gets its seed, it's just this little disc-shaped thing like this. And this is, now you can take this whole thing and crush it as is. I find it easier to kind of peel away this outer layer first, so I can get it, keep it at least out of the seeds. And then I just crush it. Sometimes it's hard to get a good pinch on it. Once you get it started, it's a little easier. And then just kind of roll it around, and the seeds will start coming out. Now, all these seeds are light colored. A lot of them will be black. So let me peel this one. Just kind of peel this dry outer layer off. And then what you're going to have in here is a lot of chaff along with the seeds. Typically your seeds will be darker. There we go. They'll be like a dark, they'll be beige color, but typically you'll have anywhere from a black to a light brown seed. So there's a lot of chaff in there. And then you can see the seeds. And the reason I say this is the most labor intensive, because it's the hardest to separate the seeds out from this. I've tried to do it with my fingernails, just kind of pulling them out, but that was just silly. The fastest way I've found so far is to just pinch it and then roll it until the seeds start falling out. And there's some more in here. And what I like to do, let me take these pods out here. What I like to do is use these little paper trays. Let me get these out, and you can see I've got some seed in there. And one way to do it is just to dump the whole kit and caboodle in there, and then you shake it while you gently, like usually I'll do this outside. I'm going to go ahead and make a mess right here, and then you gently blow on it, and that will, as you're shaking it, and that will help loosen that, or that'll help separate some of that chaff out of there. Now you have to be careful not to blow too hard, because these seeds are just kind of at that medium weight where they can fly out if you blow too hard. You're just trying to get the chaff. All I got there is chaff. Now that time a couple of seeds flew out. Okay, so once it gets to that point, then I like using just a piece of printer paper because it's white and it makes everything show up a lot better. And as I said in a previous video, I find the marshmallow seed to be the one that takes the most amount of time. Now you can see out of a few seed heads, that's all the seed I got, and there's still a bunch of chaff in there. So then I got to separate them out and count them out like this. I just push it around get this where you can see it better. I just kind of count them out and push them through. Try to get, the goal is when I'm selling the seed packs to have 25 seeds per packet, and then I'll always throw in several more to make sure that I'm getting, I didn't miscount or miss anything, or just in case they have a few seeds that are, you know, maybe not going to germinate. Anyway, that's how I separate the rest of it out from there, and it is pretty time consuming. Now with the feverfew, as you saw in my last video, I don't bother trying to separate out all this stuff because they're just way too tiny. These seeds are very lightweight. You can't do the method like I used here because you lose all your seeds if you do that. So anyway, that is how I do the marshmallow seed. So if anybody has any ideas on how to do this marshmallow seed, because you've already been doing it, that you think would be easier, or you know to be easier, please let me know. I would just love to know. I'm getting a little faster at it as I go, but it's still a real pain. Now, on to the Yarrow. The Yarrow is like the feverfew. The seeds are very tiny and very lightweight. However, I found one method, and it is somewhat labor intensive, but not too bad, that keeps it fairly simple. And you can see the flowers there, all nice and dried out. And these are all the seeds in the middle. And what you can do is simply pinch, it helps if you have fingernails, and grab the tips of those, and all that right there is seeds. You might have to do it a few times to get them all. But Yarrow is one of those things that does self-seed pretty easy. Again, the only reason, and it's a perennial on top of that. So just like with the feverfew seeds, the only reason I'm even doing this is so I can make packets for people who have been interested in buying them from me. So that's what the Yarrow seed looks like. Very, very small, and they're very lightweight. So you can't do the in the tray shake and blow the chaff off, or all your seed will be gone. So just pinch the end of the flower, or the end of the seeds that are sticking out of the flower there. It's pretty easy. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's pretty easy. Now what I do is, like with the feverfew, when I say I try to put at least 25 seeds in there, I can guarantee there's at least 50 to 100 seeds in these, because I just take 2 to 3 flower heads and pinch them and put them in there because it's so easy to do, and there's so many seed that I'm not really that concerned about getting quite a few seed. Same thing, even though this one takes longer than the feverfew, the same thing kind of applies. I get a rough idea of how many seeds are in each flower. I'm guessing with these, I could have as much as 25 seed per each tiny little flower, and these flowers grow in clusters, as you'll see if you go watch that video on the Yarrow. So very simple. And then another thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't think to say in the last video is some of it's going to depend on what climate you're in. I think most of these seeds will grow well for just about anyone, no matter where you are. However, how you start your seeds is going to be dependent on your area. Because most of these you should be able to direct seed, you know, and like the marshmallow, the feverfew, the borage, the calendula, the lamb's ear, all of this stuff, you should be able to direct seed and it will grow just fine. However, if you live in a climate like ours, where it's very cold and wet through the spring, I recommend that you start all of these seeds in small pots, like 4-inch, 2-inch, or 4-inch pots, in either greenhouse or indoors in a somewhat sunny location, and let them get a few inches tall, 2 to 3 inches tall, before you transplant them. That I did much better when I did that. I tried a couple years growing marshmallow by direct seeding it, because that's what it said to do. I could never get any to grow. But when I started it in pots in the greenhouse, and then let it get to a certain size, and then transplanted it, I had no problem. In fact, the first year I grew them from seed, I transplanted them into, from the little square pots into bigger pots you know, went from like 2-inch to 4-inch. And then once they got to a bigger size, then I planted them into the ground. And I let them get to a decent size first. And I don't know why that worked better for me. Again, you're supposed to be able to direct seed all of this stuff, but your climate's going to play, you know, you're in your area and what you got going on around there is going to play a big part on whether or not direct seeding is going to work for you. So starting it early, like maybe, and again, this is going to depend on your location. For me, some of this stuff, it wouldn't make sense to start it as early as January. I would say maybe March for most of these. You know, February, March, start it indoors or in your greenhouse, and then just let them get to a substantial size before you stick them in the ground. And they all, I've had no issues with transplanting any of them. They all transplanted quite well. All right, so that's it for part 2 of the herb saving seed video series, and I'll be doing at least one more for sure, and that one will be on the amaranth seed and the echinacea seed. And part of this is also so you can see what the seed looks like, so you'll know, you know, when you go to separate out your seed, okay, this part is the seed. Because that can be kind of tricky knowing, just like with the marshmallow, when I first started taking part, it seemed like there were so many pieces to it that I didn't know, or the calendula. I thought only the very center pieces, the little tiny curled up pieces were the seed, and come to find out it's every part of that seed head is a seed. So even though they all look very different from each other. I hope this video was helpful to you and that you enjoyed it and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching, take care, and God bless.